Pokemon just dropped their announcement for Pokémon Legends Z-A. Okay, a little while ago. They didn't show that much in the trailer, but everything changed in the final few seconds. Mega Pokemon will be returning. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 new Mega Pokemon I made for Pokémon Legends Z-A. You walk in the Santaloon forest at night when all of a sudden a ball of light appears in the distance. You decide to follow it, but every step you take, the ball seems to get further away from you. But just when you decide to give up, your Trevenant escapes its ball and roots the ball of light in place. A flash of light happens, and all of a sudden you seem to be holding what appears to be a Mega Stone. And that's when you look up to see your Trevenant. I never actually became a Mega Pokemon fan because I wasn't really playing Pokemon when this gimmick was announced. This meant that this was a completely new experience, and especially because these designs are quite intricate. We started out with the idea of giving this Pokemon big hands, but weren't really able to capture this easily, and eventually even tried forearms instead. However, this didn't seem to work, so we had to come up with a different plan. We just went back to the basics and started to work with the elements the regular design had. At first we just made sure to give him bigger leaves on the back of its head, but already got stuck when working on its body. I wanted this Pokemon to feel a lot bigger than a regular Trevenant, so I decided to remove a segment of its body and to replace it with a big gaping mouth. Once this detail was into place, I finally had a direction to go for the entire piece. It would now become the Elder Tree, just a big, scary looking tree. I did still want him to be able to grab something, so we gave him some small ghostly arms. I did however think the design would be a bit too boring if I didn't bring back the interesting glow he uses on its eye. I didn't want to repeat the exact same thing I did for the Paradox form of Giratina I made, which was a hellish gateway full of fire in its mouth. Instead we just went with this magical glow, and I think it actually looks interesting without actually being a copy of Hellish Gateway. Even with all of these details, I still didn't think the design felt grand enough. This is why we gave him some big locks at the back of him, and this actually appeared to be the solution to fill up his silhouette. For the colors we stayed close to the original Trevenant because most Megas appear to not move too far away from the original designs. For the rendering I focused on 2 layers of shading because this would give just the amount of extra depth I wanted into the design. The highlights definitely were another big focus point because without them we actually had way too many spots that would feel too bland. Mega Trevenant, the Elder Tree Pokemon. All plants and trees obey its command as it uses their roots to whip and construct those who approach it. Once it has caught someone, Mega Trevenant steals their souls and leaves the body cold and emotionless. It has destroyed many families by doing so. After encountering Mega Trevenant, what comes back home isn't human, just a living sentient mannequin. I am extremely happy with the end result of this piece. It's quite a simple one, but I do think it looks a lot bigger and scarier than the regular one. It was however a new experience to make such an intricate design, like Megas for a change. You sit in a beautiful field enjoying the warm sun on your skin, smiling together with your partner, a Heliolisk. You can feel the energy that's being generated by your partner. The constant buzz of energy being generated makes you start to doze off, but right when you're about to fall asleep, you're pulled straight out of it by a loud bang. You suddenly feel a necklace around your neck with an interesting looking pendant, and that's when you look next to you at your partner Heliolisk. The first concept that came to mind was a buff Heliolisk. I wasn't completely sure where I wanted to go with it, but making a chat version of Heliolisk was going to be fun nonetheless. We once again started out with drawing its head, but it definitely took us some time to make the shoulders fit onto it. I do have to say that this entire design was quite difficult because it mostly covered a lot of human anatomy, and I suck at that. This resulted in us trying a few different iterations for its arms and eventually settled on a meditation stance. Now that we were sort of happy with its arms, we got a direction for the legs as well. They were also quite difficult struggled, and I think that was mostly because of the perspective we gave him. I guess I just struggled quite hard with a sideways pose because I kept drawing my elements like we were watching from the front. We eventually just went with a sitting pose, playing a lot more into the meditation part. However, I didn't want him to just float, so I made sure to put it still on the ground and made it look sturdy enough to hold up its entire body. And yeah, I once again struggled to make it look connected to its body because its entire body looked weird. At the point of recording this, I can probably say that megas just aren't for me yet. I guess I haven't really figured out what makes a mega, and I guess I should have done a little bit more research beforehand. But on the other hand, I am just practicing, so what does it matter? The color palette once again stayed the same and was finished quite quickly. Rendering wasn't that quickly though, because this was one of those drawings where I wasn't really sure where the shadow should go, and I think that was just due to the perspective issues we had previously as well. Mega Heliolisk, the generator Pokemon. Mega Heliolisk always has the sun beaming above itself, meaning it will always have max energy to power itself and its attacks. Its thunderbolts have caused blackouts in multiple neighboring cities around it because it can easily overflow all of the city's power networks with the extreme level of electricity it holds. I think the design is quite a fun one, but is it even remotely something that Pokemon would ever make? No. All in all, I am happy with the chat Heliolisk that we made. I created a brush set with all my favorite brushes. I use each of them in every drawing that I make, so if you want to draw in the same style as me, I recommend checking out my website. For only €5.99, you can get the Procreate brush set, which you will be able to use in Procreate. It includes an amazing line art brush, a highlight brush which instantly makes your pieces look a lot better, and many other fantastic brushes. I also want to have a written down version of how to create Paradox Pokemon. That's why I created this step-by-step guide. It's easy to follow, and I added a bunch more tips you can use while drawing. You will also get the work files of the 2 Paradox Pokemon we created, and I added 2 work files with just a line art so you can practice coloring and shading. This guide is also available for €5.99 on my website, but since I thought you guys might be interested in buying it together with the brush set, I made it into a combi deal for only €8.99 for the both of them. That is a 25% discount, so I know what I would do. You are wandering through fields of flowers with your partner Pokemon Florges, where its presence alone flourishes all the flowers around you. You keep walking forward until you walk up to a strange looking plant. You try to pick it up, but just before you can touch it, it floats up into the sky glowing with a bright green color. It then suddenly stops, and you catch it just before it hits the ground. Confused as you are, you look back for answers, and that's when you see your Florges. I couldn't really come up with the direction I wanted to go for this piece, so I just decided to fall back on recreating its body. When I had something that resembled Florges, it was time to add new details onto the design. The first thing we did was to create a boa around its neck, one many celebrities have been seen with. I have also dubbed Florges the Queen of Flowers, hence why we gave her a crown. We also extended the eyebrows into 2 different slits, because this would make this area a little bit more interesting. At this point I felt like it didn't have enough changes, and that's why I took a step back and decided where I could bring more changes into it. We figured that we had to bring more leaves onto the bottom of her body, because this would give a lot more extra fairy feeling. Because you know, fairies usually have 4 wings or are depicted with 4 wings, and I think it actually worked well for this design. Now that I was happy with the big parts of their body, it was time to bring in the flowers the usual Florges has on their design as well. We mostly looked where the flowers were in the original one and sprinkled a few extra ones on other parts of her body. For this piece we did actually decide to change up the color palette, because we just felt like that would be a lot more interesting than using the regular one again. I didn't however make all the colored versions, I am sorry. Mega Florges, the garden Pokemon. Once Mega evolved, Florges lays flora wherever it goes and can manipulate plant life to its bidding. It sprouts flowers to form a shield and uses whips made of thistles. The color of Mega Florges will determine its preferred battling style. Red uses sheer force, blue is defensive, orange is strategic, yellow uses a balance of offense and defense, and white is tactical. I genuinely feel like this design is fine, but the execution just isn't there yet. It lacks the elegance regular Florges has, and I think that we made some small proportion errors, which made it look a little bit too short and chubby. I've also noticed that I really hate this color palette. I think combining red with green is rarely a good combination, especially in these hues. I am however a fan of it shiny, and I think that looks absolutely sick. Well everyone, this was my take at 3 new megas for Pokémon Legends Z-A. I decided to only use Kalos Pokemon because that is of course the featured region. I also tried to make it a bit more interesting with the little storylines for the Mega Stones. I have no clue if you guys like this, let me know in the comments. Goodbye!